So the state of scheduling in professional tennis is unique. There's very little clarity on when matches start. There's no clarity on when matches end. And as a professional athlete in that system, it is very difficult to plan your life, to recover post matches, to prepare for the matches to come, and then once a match ends, to prepare, if you win, for the next match. And part of what the PTPA is committed to is bringing some greater degree of structure to match scheduling so that we can avoid some of the issues that face players. And when we think about tournament to tournament, some tournaments have a curfew, which is laudable. Some tournaments have no curfew and seem to revel in late ending matches and almost taking a victory lap when a match ends at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or even 4 a.m. local time. And that, from a player perspective, doesn't really make sense. And neither does it make sense from a fan perspective, a broadcaster perspective, and any commercial partner perspective. Because if you look in the stands, if you zoom out from the exhausted players at those matches that end at 2 a.m., zoom out, the fans are mostly gone. They have jobs, they have families, they have things to do. They just need to go sleep. So they're not there anymore, by and large. The broadcasters have a match that would have been phenomenal to have in a regular broadcast window, but after midnight is not prime time in any market. And so to have these matches stretching on interminably and depending on tournament to tournament does not optimize the sport for anybody. And it is not, from a health and safety standpoint for the players, it's not optimal. It's frankly not fair. Again, think about your own working conditions at your job. And could you imagine showing up to work and not exactly knowing when you're starting? Could you imagine then also not knowing when you're ending? And it's compounded because the later you start, the later you're going to finish. So part of what the PTPA is working on is how do we bring some semblance of rationality, and what are best practices, and understanding the uniqueness of tennis, because tennis tournaments are large, complicated events. Many of the biggest tournaments have hundreds of players and hundreds of matches over a course of just a few days. Many of those matches are played outdoors, and so weather and things that are completely beyond anybody's control can affect and impact those matches. Yet at the same time, not having any clarity about when a match starts, what day you're going to be playing to start a tournament, that frankly is not optimal for anybody. And so what are the ways that we can improve that system while improving the sport going forward? And if you look again to other sports, many sports have done a great job of introducing reforms in order to speed up the pace of play, shorten the length of games, even with games that don't have a defined clock for the entirety of a game, so that when the clock hits 0, you know the game is over. Well, in tennis matches, that doesn't exist, right? You have to win a certain number of games, a certain number of sets in order to have the match end. And so even in that scenario, what can be done to bring standardization from tournament to tournament so that we don't have these wild fluctuations for players as they travel across the globe, that we don't have these wild fluctuations as well for players, fans, and broadcasters alike, and bring again some clarity to the system that really should serve to optimize the sport for everybody going forward. Over the last year, the PTPA has really dug into the issue of match scheduling and spoken to tournament organizers, big and small, to get a handle on how different tournaments approach the issue of scheduling, what factors are within our control collectively versus what factors are outside of our control, such as the weather, and what can we do to mitigate the impact of the things that are outside of our control while maximizing the things that are completely within our control. And now that we have a good handle on how things work and the differences, what we're going to do going forward is put together best practices for how tournaments should schedule matches and recommendations, and with the player voice leading, right? But also talking about what broadcasters and fans alike, and even incorporating some of the feedback from broadcasters and fans and where they align with the player voice, saying, look, everybody in the system wants these changes, and so why wouldn't we adopt them? Players, when it comes to match scheduling, we want to hear your voice. We need to hear your voice. Nobody is impacted more than each of you with the vagueness, the lack of clarity, the showing up for work and not knowing when you're actually going to go to work, not knowing when you're actually going to be able to go home, dealing with the recovery and the lack of rest to be able to then get ready for the next match. And so we are here for you. The PTPA is here for you. Share these stories, share them with us, help us to build a more logical match scheduling program.